If you had asked me 3 months ago who I thought I'd end up falling for, the last person on earth I would have said was Evan. It wasn't that he was unattractive. God, no. Evan had that annoyingly casual hotness. Tall, lean, always dressed in neutral tones like he just stepped out of a lifestyle magazine shoot titled Effortless Confidence. He had this mop of dark curly hair that somehow looked better messy, like he'd just woken up, and these calm gray eyes that didn't seem to miss anything. But he was also, according to office lore, completely straight, and that was supposed to be the end of it, except it wasn't. I started the new job in early January. The tech company I landed at had a reputation for being both laid back and brutally efficient, a startup that had finally started making real money, where everyone wore hoodies and used words like asynchronous workflow unironically. I was just grateful for the paycheck. After freelancing through most of my 20s, I was finally getting a little stability. I was hired as a UX designer, and Evan was on the product team, so we overlapped in all the ways that mattered. Daily stand-ups, project reviews, the occasional awkward team happy hour where someone would suggest karaoke, and we'd all pretend to think it was a great idea. We weren't close, at least not at first. I noticed him early, of course. Evan was hard to miss, not just because of the way he looked, but because he had this weird sense of stillness about him. In an office full of people vibrating on caffeine and Slack messages, he was just chill. He didn't overshare or play office politics. He was polite, smart, and always left meetings exactly when they ended. A mystery, basically. Which is why I didn't know what to make of it the first time he stayed back after a meeting to ask if I wanted to grab lunch. I thought maybe he had questions about the project. Or maybe he felt sorry for me because I was the new guy. But we ended up walking 3 blocks to this tiny Thai place, and he talked the whole way, about music mostly, and how he missed the Seattle scene before everyone moved to LA. We barely mentioned work. That became a pattern. Once a week, then twice, then it was coffee breaks, and suddenly we were paired up for more and more projects. He started texting me outside of work, sending dumb memes and Spotify links. Nothing romantic, just friendly. Except it didn't feel like just friendly. I kept second-guessing myself. Gaydar can be faulty, especially when your own feelings start getting involved. I told myself not to read into anything. Straight guys can be chill too. Straight guys can share playlists and ask what you're doing this weekend, and sit just a little too close when you're both working on your laptops in the break room. But then he started calling me man less and dude more. That probably sounds stupid, but it's true. There was something warmer about it. Like the way his eyes would linger when I laughed. Like he was cataloging the way I looked when I wasn't trying to be seen. One Thursday evening, we were both working late in the office. The lights had gone into that weird half-dim mode, and most people had cleared out. I was scrolling through a Figma board, brain fried, when Evan leaned over from his desk and said, "Hey, you want to get out of here?" I blinked at him. Like, leave? He grinned. "Yeah, I know a place with half-decent tacos and strong margaritas." It sounded harmless. 2 coworkers unwinding. So I went. The taco place turned out to be this hole-in-the-wall spot with a patio and fairy lights, the kind of place you find by accident and never forget. Evan ordered for both of us like he'd been here 100 times, and we sat outside, bundled up in our jackets against the cold. He asked about my last relationship. That was new. I answered honestly, told him it had ended over a year ago, that it had been messy, that I was mostly over it, but not looking for anything serious. He nodded, his eyes fixed on the condensation sliding down his glass. "Yeah," he said. "Same boat, kinda." Then he added, "I've never really dated anyone. Like you, though." That made my stomach twist. "Like me?" He didn't look away. "Yeah, guys." I sat there, barely breathing. He didn't elaborate, just let the words hang between us. And then, just like that, he changed the subject. After that night at the taco place, things didn't return to normal. I tried to pretend they did. The next morning, I showed up to the office, coffee in hand, earbuds in, head down like always. But inside, I was replaying his words. "I've never really dated anyone like you." It wasn't even what he said. It was how he said it, like he was dropping a secret and seeing if I'd pick it up. I didn't know what to do with it. He didn't bring it up again. In fact, he acted like nothing had happened. We were in 2 meetings that day. He cracked jokes, took notes, leaned back in his chair with that calm posture like he had nothing on his mind but quarterly objectives. But once, when I looked up from my laptop, he was already watching me. His eyes held mine a little too long before he looked away. Friday evening rolled around, and just as I was thinking about ducking out early, Evan stopped by my desk. "Hey," he said. "You doing anything tonight?" I paused. "No plans." "Want to come by my place?" "I've got this stupid retro projector I'm trying to set up. Could use another set of hands. There's beer. Probably pizza." The way he said it was too casual, like he was trying not to make it a big deal. And maybe that's why I said yes. His apartment was nicer than mine. More minimalist. Clean lines, light wood floors, a record player he actually used. He tossed his keys in a bowl by the door and shrugged off his coat, offering me a beer before motioning toward the living room. The projector setup turned out to be a joke. It took us 5 minutes. Then we just hung out, watched a movie, sat way too close on his couch. And for the first hour or so, I told myself it was fine. But somewhere during the second movie, something indie and slow, where 2 people fall in love over glances and whispered conversations, I noticed Evan's knee was pressed against mine. Neither of us moved. I tried to focus on the film. I really did. But I could feel the tension building, thickening the air between us. I could hear the shift in his breathing. I could see the way he was thinking about moving, the way his eyes flicked to my mouth when I turned to ask him something. Then came the moment. He reached for the remote, brushing my leg in the process, and instead of pulling away, his hand just stayed, resting lightly on my thigh. Testing me. I didn't move. He noticed. He looked at me, really looked at me. And in that tiny pause, it felt like the whole room got quieter. Like the sound from the movie blurred out, and all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said softly. I wasn't sure if he meant the moment, or me, or his life in general. I swallowed. "You don't have to know." His hand curled slightly on my leg. He looked down, like he was afraid of what he'd see in my face. Then, quietly, he said, "You make it really hard to pretend." My heart thudded in my chest. I turned toward him a little, closing the gap just enough to feel the warmth of his breath. "Pretend what?" He laughed softly, but it wasn't a happy sound. "That I'm not curious, that I don't think about this when we're sitting in meetings, that I don't wonder what would happen if I just..." He trailed off, but he didn't have to finish, because a second later I closed the space between us. It wasn't rushed or messy. It wasn't one of those fireworks exploding, music swelling moments. It was quiet, careful, but it was real. His lips were warm, hesitant. He didn't pull away. In fact, he leaned in, deepening it slightly, like he needed to convince himself this was okay. When we finally pulled apart, I didn't say anything. Neither did he. We just sat there, the glow of the projector painting flickering shadows on our faces, and I knew this wasn't just some one-time thing. Evan was at the edge of something, and somehow I was standing right there with him. That kiss should have made things clearer, but if anything, it just made them more confusing. Evan didn't freak out. He didn't bolt from the couch or start stammering apologies. He just sat there for a while, head tilted back against the cushions, lips slightly parted like he was still feeling the weight of it. Then he exhaled, slow, long, and muttered, "Shit." I waited, heart pounding. Shit could mean a lot of things. He turned his head, eyes meeting mine. "That wasn't a bad shit," he added quickly. I don't know what the hell I'm doing." "You don't have to know," I said again, softer this time. But Evan shook his head, a quiet frustration behind his eyes. "I've never done this before. Like, anything with a guy. I'm still figuring it out," I nodded. "I know. I'm not even sure what this is." I leaned back beside him, trying to take some pressure off the moment. "It doesn't have to be anything yet. Maybe it's just a moment." He glanced at me. "Do you want it to be just a moment?" I didn't answer right away. The air between us was still charged, still warm. But I wasn't going to push him. "I want it to be whatever it is. Real," I said finally. "And right now, this feels real." Evan gave the smallest nod, like he was tucking that thought away. We didn't kiss again that night. He offered to call a ride for me, but I told him I'd walk. I needed the cold air, needed to shake the weight of what had just happened and let it settle on its own. As I stepped outside, he lingered in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Are you?" He hesitated. "Ask me again tomorrow." The next few days were a weird mix of totally normal and quietly surreal. At work, we went back to business as usual, at least on the surface. But underneath, there was a new current. When we passed each other in the hallway, our shoulders brushed. When our eyes met during a meeting, something lingered. It was like we were living a second conversation beneath the one everyone else could hear. And then Friday happened. We were both staying late again. Another deadline. Another long night. Most of the team had cleared out by 6, but Evan and I were still there, sitting across from each other at the same conference table, the office glowing under dimmed lights. Around 8, he stretched, stood up, and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "I keep thinking about it," he said quietly without turning around. I looked up from my laptop. "Yeah?" That night, the kiss, what it meant. I closed the lid slowly. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. And I keep wondering what happens if I cross that line again. I didn't say anything. I just stood up and walked over to where he stood by the window. The view was nothing special, just the city in shades of yellow and blue, but the moment had a stillness that felt important. "I think you already did," I said. "You crossed it. We both did." He looked at me, really looked. "And are you okay with that?" I nodded. "Are you?" His eyes dropped to my lips. "I want to be." And just like that, the space between us disappeared again. This kiss was different. Less hesitant, more charged. He cupped the back of my neck, and I slid my hand under his hoodie, palm resting against the small of his back. We didn't speak, didn't need to. After a minute, he pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine. "Do you want to come over tonight?" I knew what he meant. And I knew it wasn't just about this. "Yeah," I said. So we left the office, took separate cars again just to keep appearances, and met at his apartment like nothing was different. Except everything was. Evan's apartment looked the same when I walked in. Dim lighting, the same minimalist furniture, that faint smell of cedar and something warm like old books. But everything felt different. He closed the door behind me with a quiet click. Neither of us said anything for a second. He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit I hadn't noticed until that moment. "I don't really know how to do this," he said finally. "You don't have to," I replied. "We can just hang out." He looked relieved but still uncertain, like part of him was trying to stay in control while the rest was already unraveling. We ended up on the couch again, same spot as before. Except this time our knees touched and stayed touching. This time he reached for my hand first. There wasn't a dramatic moment. No music. No heavy breathing or passionate declarations. Just his hand slipping into mine, a quiet confession in itself. We talked. For hours. He told me about high school. About the way he always felt like he was playing a part but didn't realize it until recently. About his last girlfriend, how he cared about her but never felt that pull everyone kept talking about. He told me he used to think something was wrong with him, that he just wasn't built for real intimacy. "I thought I just wasn't wired that way," he said, voice low. "But then you showed up." I didn't know what to say to that. So I squeezed his hand, and then, eventually, he leaned into me, slowly, cautiously, like he was afraid I'd flinch. But I didn't. I let him rest his head against my shoulder and run his fingers lightly over the inside of my wrist, like he was memorizing it. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded into my shoulder. "Yeah, better now." We didn't kiss again until later, after he got up to grab us beers, after we started watching some mindless show on Netflix. we both immediately ignored. I was leaning back, one arm draped along the back of the couch, and when he sat back down, he turned to me with this strange look, like gratitude mixed with desire and confusion. "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong," he said, almost to himself, "but it doesn't." And then he kissed me again. Slower this time, more deliberate, like he wasn't just testing something anymore, he was choosing it. That night, we didn't have sex. We undressed slowly, carefully, like unwrapping something fragile. He watched me like he was trying to take in every detail. We lay in his bed, skin against skin, the kind of closeness that doesn't rush. His fingers explored my chest like he was reading something written there. "I didn't know it could feel like this," he whispered at one point, his voice rough around the edges. I didn't answer. I just pulled him closer. I didn't expect to sleep. But I did. Somehow, despite the nerves, the weight of what had just happened, and the quiet thunder of everything it could mean, I passed out with Evan's arm draped loosely across my waist, his chest pressed against my back, and his breath soft on my neck. I woke up to sunlight slicing through the blinds and the distant sound of traffic outside his apartment window. For a moment, I thought I was alone. His side of the bed was empty, but then I heard the clink of a spoon against a mug from the kitchen. I sat up slowly, pulling on my shirt, and padded out to the kitchen. Evan stood at the counter in flannel pants and a faded college hoodie, stirring coffee with a kind of purposeful concentration that made me smile. He looked up when he heard me. "Hey," he said, "there's coffee." "Thanks." I took the mug he handed me, fingers brushing his. That same electricity passed between us, quieter now, but no less there. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "So, yeah." Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. I took a sip of coffee to stall. Then he asked, "Was that okay?" I raised an eyebrow. "Last night?" he nodded. "It was better than okay." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Good. I wasn't sure if—" "You didn't screw it up, Evan." "I know. I just—" He paused. "I've never woken up next to a guy before." "And?" He looked down at his coffee, then back up. "I liked it. More than I thought I would." We sat on his tiny couch with our mugs, legs touching, the silence between us full of new understanding. Eventually, I asked, "What happens now?" He took a long breath, his fingers tightening around the mug. "I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. I just need a little time to figure out how to deal with it." I nodded. "We can go slow." He smiled, a little crooked. "Slow sounds good." Over the next few weeks, we did go slow. At work, nothing changed. We kept it professional, maybe too professional. There was a noticeable space between us now in meetings, like we were compensating for the gravity that existed outside the office. But outside of work, we drifted closer. Movie nights became routine. So did slow Sunday mornings, late-night texts that turned into sleepovers, and quiet check-ins when the doubts crept back in. He'd say, "You okay with this?" And I'd always answer, "Yeah, are you?" His answer was never exactly the same. Sometimes it was a quiet, "I think so." Other times it was a kiss, wordless and certain. He was still figuring himself out. And I was okay being part of that process, as long as I didn't have to wonder if he meant it when he looked at me that way. The first time he reached for my hand in public was outside a small bookstore on a rainy Saturday. We were standing under an awning, waiting for the storm to ease up, and he just did it. No warning, no hesitation. My heart leapt. He didn't let go, even when someone walked by. 3 months later, Evan and I stood shoulder to shoulder at a friend's rooftop party, watching the city glow under the setting sun. It was the kind of moment I might have dreamed up once. Just him and me, close, calm, unbothered. But it hadn't come easy. There were moments, plenty of them, where I questioned everything. When Evan pulled back without warning. When he got quiet, distant. When I caught that look in his eyes, like he was still trying to figure out where he fit in this story. And then there were the good moments too. the unexpected texts, the lazy mornings with his head on my chest, the way he'd start talking about something random, like why he always hated group projects in college, and then catch himself halfway through, smile, and say, "I don't think I've ever told anyone that." There was something special about being someone's first, but also something risky. You don't know if you're just a stepping stone or the destination. I asked him once, on a night when the weight of it all sat a little heavier than usual, "Am I just your experiment?" His face fell. "No, God, no. I wouldn't do that to you." "Then what are we?" He didn't answer right away. He looked down, thinking, then back up. "We're something I didn't know I wanted until I met you." That held me. That got me through the moments when my brain wanted to spiral. Because slowly, piece by piece, Evan stopped flinching when I touched him in public. He started introducing me as my person to friends who didn't already know. He kissed me on the cheek in the back of an Uber once, and when the driver smiled knowingly, Evan didn't even blink. That night, on the rooftop, with the sky turning orange and the music low and forgettable behind us, he turned to me and said, "I told my sister." My heart caught. "Yeah?" She asked if we were serious. I hesitated. "And what did you say?" He looked at me with that crooked smile I'd come to know too well. I said, "I think he might be the real thing." The real thing. I didn't say anything for a second. I just nodded, because the moment was already perfect without me needing to fill it. Evan leaned over, bumped his shoulder against mine. "You're okay with that, right?" "I am," I said. And I meant it. Because sometimes the love stories that start in the most uncertain places, the ones that come with doubt and slow burn and quietly tangled limbs on a too small couch, those are the ones that actually go somewhere.